Greetings YouTube, Stuffsmeister here with the first in what I hope becomes a series of videos called the Trainguy1988 videos, in which I talk about trains and railroads, two subjects very close to my heart. Just some housekeeping things I want to get out of the way first. As I'm a native of Philadelphia, or the area around there, a lot of my references will be based around that particular region. The conversational style of my videos will not be, I know more about trains than you should listen to me, so much as it will be, here's what I've learned and I'd like to share it with you. I am not an expert on trains and railroads, nor am I a master on all subjects train and railroad related. I'm just a guy who likes trains, who was born in 1988. That's right folks, I was born 1 year before this musician and this musician. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the meat of the video, with apologies to my vegetarian and vegan viewers. Trains were the lifeblood of the American economy and livelihoods in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and are still vital today. Nearly 87,000 passengers used Amtrak daily pre-pandemic. That's over twice the seating capacity of Citizens Bank Park, a little over 1.25 times the capacity of Lincoln Financial Field, and over 4 times the capacity of the Wells Fargo Center. This is down to about 1/3 of that number, or 29,000, during the pandemic. And over 2 billion tons of freight were moved across the country by rail annually, and railroads moved $15.7 billion of freight according to July 2021 figures. As President Biden said during Amtrak's 50th anniversary celebration in April 2021, a single day without Amtrak, particularly the Northeast Corridor, would cost the U.S. $100 million, and we'd have to add 7 lanes to our highways to accommodate the additional traffic. Prior to the advent of trains, the only means of getting around were by walking, sailing or steamship, horse, or if you were an imitator of the aristocratic lifestyle back then, the bicycle. The first railroad-type operation took place in England in 1630, where wooden rails were placed on wooden ties for the purpose of transporting coal. There was a form of early public rail transport in the horse-drawn tram, though this was more of a predecessor to the streetcar. It wasn't very efficient, as horses could only work so many hours per day and had to be housed, groomed and cared for, fed, and, well, the concept of using steam for motion, or the steam engine, dates back to ancient Greece with the invention of the aeolophile, this device here, by a man named Heron Alexandrinus, also known as Hero of Alexandria. However, this device would not be used properly until it was reinvented in the mid to late 1500s by Ottoman polymath Taqi al-Din, who used the same idea of steam rotating a spit by jet streams pointing at a wheel. Thomas Newcomen invented the first practical steam engine in 1712 with the purpose of lifting water out of mines, as seen here, but it wasn't until 1776 that James Watt and his partner, Matthew Boulton, came up with a more efficient steam engine that was adapted to produce rotary motion. In 1804, Richard Trevithick developed the first high-pressure steam engine and the first full-scale working railway locomotive, which pulled a train along the Penydarren Ironworks tramway. And 4 years later, Trevithick's fourth locomotive, Catch Me Who Can, became the first steam locomotive to carry fare-paying passengers around a circular track at his steam circus in Bloomsbury or West End, London in July 1808. Around this same time, a Philadelphia-based inventor named Oliver Evans had designed and built a steam-powered dredge named Aroctor Amphibolus, or amphibious digger, though this was more of a predecessor to the automobile than the steam locomotive. The first commercially successful locomotive, the Salamanca, was built by John Blenkinsop in 1812 for the Middleton Railway between Middleton and Leeds, where it carried coal wagons. 13 years later, in 1825, Locomotion No. 1, built by George Stephenson and his son Robert's company, was the first locomotive to haul passengers on a public railway, the Stockton and Darlington. Most locomotives for the American railroads had to be imported across the pond from Great Britain. Examples of such include the Stourbridge Lion and the John Bull, the oldest operable engine-powered vehicle of any kind. Peter Cooper's Tom Thumb, Peter is seen here, was built in 1830 for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, the oldest U.S. railroad. It was the first U.S.-built locomotive to run in the States, but like Catch Me Who Can, it was more for demonstration than producing revenue, and lost a race to a horse-drawn cart. The first railroad outside the United Kingdom and the U.S. opened in France in 1829 between Saint-Étienne and Lyon. This next section covers additional railroading firsts, but rather than babble on, I thought I'd step back and let you enjoy. The Golden Age of steam locomotives refers to the period from the 1920s to the 40s before diesel engines, planes, and automobiles replaced steam engines as the preferred means of transportation. The first diesel engine was produced in 1925. Railroads proved vital during both World Wars I and II as they kept soldiers, war equipment, rations, water, and coal moving across the nations involved in a way previously not possible during armed conflict. In the post-war period, U.S. railways began replacing steam engine rolling stock with diesel-electric units, a process that wouldn't be completed until the 1960s. It was also during this time that nationalization, or state purchase of railway companies, began to occur in places like Britain and Argentina. It was also during the 60s up until the 2000s that many nations began adopting high-speed rail in an effort to make rail transport competitive with air and road transport and reclaim some of its declining business. Prominent examples include the Japanese Shinkansen, or bullet train, France's Train à Grande Vitesse, or TGV, Britain's Advanced Passenger Train, APT, which unfortunately only lasted a short time due to using existing lines rather than build new ones, and Amtrak's Acela. Speaking of Amtrak, formerly known as the National Passenger Railroad Corporation, was formed as a government-owned organization in 1971. This happened as a result of the Penn Central, created from a merger of several railroads, declaring bankruptcy 1 year earlier, marking the end of American passenger service being run by private companies. The opposite essentially occurred in Britain in the mid-1990s, as the British government passed ownership of its track and infrastructure to Railtrack, later replaced by Network Rail in 2002, and freight and passenger operations were sold to various private companies. The beginning of the 21st century saw many improvements and advancements in rail technology. There was the first electrified railway between Shenyang and Harbin in China, the British HS1, which allows trains to run from London to Paris on high-speed track. High-speed Spanish trains were introduced between Madrid and Barcelona. The modified TGV beat the previous French high-speed train record with a speed of 357.2 miles per hour. Ireland's first diesel intercity rail line entered service, and in 2010, the Shanghai Metro surpassed the London Underground as the world's largest urban transit system. Thank you for watching this video. I will be making other videos in future, but in the meantime, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, or if you wish, please leave a railroad-related comment, story, or question in the comments section below. Thank you and have a good day.